Yes, and breaking news, the Chelsea winger MUDRYK is appealing to the Court of Arbitration for Sport after he was given a 4-year ban by the Football Association for anti-doping violations. Our chief correspondent, Kaveh Solokov, joins me now. Look, just tell us what's happened and where we are with this.
Well, the first thing to say is the only reason we know that he's been banned for 4 years by the FA is because it's been confirmed by the Court of Arbitration for Sport that he has appealed against a 4-year FA ban to the Court of Arbitration for Sport in Switzerland. The FA themselves have said absolutely nothing because this is a confidential process. Chelsea have said nothing. The players' lawyers are not commenting either. But because we now know that he's appealed, we know that he's been banned for 4 years because CAS have confirmed it to us today. Now, the background to this is, of course, he was a big money signing for Chelsea. They signed him for around £88 million from Shakhtar Donetsk. That is with all the add-ons that they would have to pay. But he's not played for them for 18 months. The last time he played for them was in November 2024 when he scored in a Conference League game. But he, at the same time, he gave a sample, doping sample, while he was on international duty with Ukraine, not when he was playing for Chelsea. And that tested positive. Now, we believe that tested positive for meldonium. Now, he was provisionally suspended by the Football Association in January 2025. And we found out last June that he was charged with an anti-doping violation by the Football Association. Since then, it's been total radio silence. We have not known what has been going on. But obviously now we do know because we've had this confirmation from the Court of Arbitration for Sport. OK, so that's who he's appealing to then. So what's the best and worst case scenarios for him here? Well, the best case scenario for him is that he wins his appeal, which means that his name is cleared and he can return to playing for Chelsea as soon as the appeal is heard and he's cleared. Now, he's always maintained his innocence. He believes that his sample was contaminated while he was on international duty with Ukraine. But the worst case scenario for him is that he loses his appeal and he has to serve a 4-year ban. Now, he's already been provisionally suspended and he hasn't played for 18 months. So if he loses his appeal, you would think that he would not be able to return to playing until the end of 2028. And that, of course, would be a bitter blow for the player and, of course, a bitter blow for Chelsea as well, because they would be deprived of the player, a player who they signed for such a big transfer fee. Yeah, OK. Kaveh, thank you for bringing us up to date on that story.
If you can tap dance your way around legislation as Conor Benn did and other fighters have done, it will be almost unbelievable to think that MUDRYK won't find a solution to some extent to get himself into a position where the ban is reduced from 4 years to 2 years, and by the time that comes round he'll be out almost because he'd have served the time in the last 15-16 months. Yeah, Chelsea are sitting on the sidelines paying his salary because the alternative is either looking at the opportunity as a breach of contract, because if he's been charged and now found guilty, he's potentially in breach of contract. They probably don't want to do that because they've got his registration. If they terminate his contract, they terminate the registration, which means they can't sell him. Whether they got a case against him as potentially was happened before. You remember the Romanian player, Adrian Mutu, yeah, who Chelsea sued, and I think ended up bankrupting him for the fact that he was in breach of contract because his was recreational drug use. Yeah. And Chelsea sued him, terminated his contract, and sued him back for loss of opportunity and ultimately lost the transfer fees. My nose tells me that with the kind of resources that a player that cost 90 million quid would have around him, that they'll find a way to get themselves into a position, despite strict liability and having to account for it, that they get themselves back into a situation where 2 years is what they serve. And given they're 15-16 months already into it, he'll be back available as a professional footballer in December of 2026. The interesting thing will be, he's been at Chelsea for what, 3 years? By the time if his ban comes up, if I'm right in my assumption, right? So if I come up in my assumption that he's been comes back in December 26, if he's been bought for 80 odd million quid, he'll be on their books at 20 million quid. You'll be able to sell him despite the challenge of what he is or what he isn't for 20-30 million quid. You've booked a profit at that time. So there's lots in it for Chelsea to think about. The player I doubt will play for Chelsea again. because as Ben rightly says, he was a mile off in lots of people's minds in terms of his competence. And what you've got is a player now that is an £80 million misfit, has got banned for drug consequences.
Yeah.
Now defending himself, not against the fact there's drugs in his system, against how they've got there. Strict liability means you've got to have a cast iron, copper bottom, unassailable reason, which clearly hasn't been the case. Otherwise, he wouldn't be getting a 4-year ban from the outset. He's relying on Court of Arbitration of Sport to look at it perhaps more equitably in their minds.
Yeah.
And the usual form is they'll take the ban and they'll take it into 2 years rather than 4. That's not exonerating yourself. That's just bringing yourself back quicker. And then that becomes a situation where Chelsea go, we can still monetize this player, not in our first team, but we can sell him. And because he's on our books at 20 million quid, we could sell him for 30 million quid and make a £10 million profit.